Good evening, everyone. Happy 2021. Welcome to the annual organizational meeting of the Lansing School District Board of Education. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Dr. Boddy? Dr. Burrows?
Here.
Ms. Hodgen? Mrs. Lawrence?
Here.
Mrs. Lilje?
Here.
Mr. Lopez?
Present.
Mrs. Moore?
Here.
Dr. Rodriguez? And Mrs. Willis?
Present.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. It's exciting to hear Mrs. Moore. Welcome to your first meeting. The first order of business that we have this evening is administering the oath of office to our new board member, Mrs. Robin Moore, and to our recently re-elected board members, Mr. Guillermo Lopez and Dr. Nino Rodriguez. With us this evening, we have a very special guest. We're very excited to have State Representative Sarah Anthony, one of our best and brightest alums from that school on the south side, Everett High School. And Representative Anthony will be administering the oath of office to our members this evening. Representative, please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. And good evening to you all. You know, when Ms. Lawrence contacted me about this opportunity, you know, I was so honored. You know, the Lansing School District means so much to me. This school district not only ensured that I could read, which we will test out this evening as we administer the oath of office, but, you know, it shaped me, molded me. You know, my mentors, everything that I am, and everyone who poured into me really came from this district. And so I just want to thank you all for stepping up to serve in this capacity. We know this job can be long and hard and sometimes thankless, but we know that folks who are called to serve really are living out their passion, and this is God's work. And so I just appreciate you all stepping up to serve. To Dr. Rodriguez and Mr. Lopez, who are coming on for yet another term of service, I want to say thank you, because you know what you're getting into, and yet you continue to step up to serve. So thank you. And to Ms. Moore, thank you for stepping up and leading in this capacity. We need your voice more than ever. So without further ado, I'm excited to help you all. For our, will we do all three members, or will we do one at a time?
Let's do one at a time.
All right. All right. Let's do Dr. Rodriguez first. All right. Will you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I do solemnly swear or affirm.
I solemnly swear and assert
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of this state.
And the Constitution of this state.
And that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office.
I faithfully discharge the duties of the office.
Of member of the Board of Education of the Lansing School District.
Member of the Board of Education of the Lansing School District.
According to the best of my ability.
According to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez, would you please raise your right hand? And repeat after me.
Okay.
I do solemnly swear or affirm.
I do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state.
and the Constitution of this state.
And I will faithfully discharge the duty of the office.
I will faithfully discharge this office,
The duties of this office.
the duties of this office,
of member of the Board of the Education of Lansing School District,
a member of the Board of the Lansing School District,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability, and so help me God.
Amen. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, Ms. Moore, please raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear or affirm
I do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of this office
of member of the Lansing Board of Education,
of member of the Lansing of the Board of Education,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Again, congratulations to all three of you. I am so proud of you. I am always rooting for you as board members, for our entire district. And just know I stand with you and for you, and will continue to fight for Lansing schools every step of the way. So thank you, and please reach out anytime. God
We
bless.
will. Be careful. We will.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Madam President,
Dr. Rodriguez.
thank you. I want to show to you the certificate for the election that we received from the Ingham County. That is number 3 and the last one. But thank you, Sarah, for your time and taking on the good loyalty to the Lansing School District and this board. We count on you in every minute, and this community trusts you so much. And then keep doing the good work because we need it on these particular times.
Thank you. You know, I'm always fighting for you. So, all right. Take care.
Thank you, Representative Anthony. I know you're busy, so feel free to keep it moving as you need to.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right. So now we're back up to full strength with 9 members. Not that we weren't for any period of time, but we're excited for our new members and our re-elected members. And we're going to get started on our organizational meeting. Just for members of the public who might be tuning in and seeing this meeting for the first time, I want to give you a little bit of information about what exactly we're doing tonight. We are required by law to have an annual organizational meeting. And what we do in that meeting, first of all, is we elect officers. As you might know, the Board of Education has a president, a vice president, a secretary, and a treasurer. We will be electing officers to sit in those roles for the remainder of the year in just a moment. We will also be adopting several motions, such as adopting law firms and banks that we will use for this year. There have been some questions about why do we use more than one law firm and why do we use more than one bank, which I think is a great question. We use more than one law firm because different law firms specialize in different types of law. So, for example, we use Troon Law Firm a lot, as do a lot of school districts, most school districts throughout the state, because Troon specializes in education law. So they've got attorneys who have decades of experience in the issues for which we use them. We use Miller Canfield, we use Seacrest Wardle, we use these different law firms sometimes because they specialize in contract negotiation, in litigation, in insurance, in special education law. So we always want to make sure that we're being good stewards of the district's resources and protecting the rights of staff and students and using the appropriate attorney to represent us in that field. For banks, we have, of course, a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we are managing the funds of the district appropriately. We don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket, so to speak. So we diversify and we use more than one financial institution to make sure that we're investing properly, that we're getting the best interest rates, that sort of thing. We will also be adopting our calendar for the year, which of course is always subject to change just based on district business, and I think it will be changing already. We will be appointing a Title IX representative. We will be making sure that our members have copies of bylaws and of materials that they need to have in order to properly do their job. So that's just a little bit of background. I know it sounds like we're going to be doing a lot tonight, and we are, but a lot of this is very pro forma, and we're going to zip right through quite a bit of it. That said, the first thing we will be starting on, I'm going to go to action items for my fellow board members because the first couple of sections of the agenda are informational. So we're going to go down to action items. And of course, anyone, please feel free to stop me or interrupt me if you have questions or additional comments to make. We will be starting with the election of officers. And we'll start with, let's do these individually. We'll start with number 1, election of president. And do you guys want to do these individually, or would you prefer to do a slate? Does anyone?
Madam President, I would be open to considering a slate if one was nominated.
Okay. Why don't we have someone who's not on the slate make a motion? Just
Madam President,
Mrs. Lilgy.
I move that we approve the slate of Gabrielle Lawrence as president, Rachel Willis as vice president, Nathan Burrows as treasurer, and Nino Rodriguez as secretary.
Do I have support?
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Lilgy, supported by Mr. Lopez. Do all 4 accept your nomination? You can indicate by saying yes or nodding or whatever.
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion on that slate before we take a vote on that? Okay. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Dr. Body? Dr. Burrows?
Yes.
Mrs. Hodgen? Mrs. Lawrence?
Yes.
Mrs. Lilgy?
Yes.
Mr. Lopez?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Dr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mrs. Willis?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your confidence in the job that we're doing. I know we're all excited about what we're going to be undergoing this year, and hopefully, as the Counting Crows have said, maybe this year will be better than the last. All right, I can't believe I just quoted the Counting Crows. Oh, I'm really nearing 40, aren't I? We're going to go on to attorney appointments and law firms. May I have a motion?
Madam President,
Dr. Burrows.
I move that the Board of Education authorize the use of law firms on the board's approved list of firms as detailed in the enclosure.
Second.
It's been moved by Dr. Burrows, supported by Dr. Rodriguez. Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Dr. Burrows?
Yes.
Mrs. Lawrence?
Yes.
Mrs. Lilgy?
Yes.
Mr. Lopez? Did he say yes? I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Mr. Lopez?
There- Oh, I thought he was frozen.
Okay.
Mr. Lopez, are you thinking or are you frozen?
I did say yes, but I
Okay.
wasn't.
I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It was a secret.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Dr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mrs. Willis?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to designating depositories for school funds. May I have a motion?
Madam President,
Mrs. Willis?
I move that the designation of depositories for Lansing School District funds contained in the enclosures be reaffirmed.
Support.
It's been moved by Mrs. Willis, supported by Dr. Burrows. Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Dr. Burrows,
Yes.
Mrs. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mrs. Lilji,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Dr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Willis,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to designating auditing firms. May I have a motion?
Madam President,
Mrs. Lilji.
I move that the designation for a firm to conduct the annual external audit of accounts as detailed in the enclosure be reaffirmed.
Support.
It's been moved by Mrs. Lilji, supported by Mrs. Willis. Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Dr. Burrows,
Yes.
Mrs. Lawrence,
Yes.
Ms. Lilji,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Dr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Willis,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to designation of those persons authorized to sign checks, contracts, agreements, and purchase orders. May I have a motion?
Madam President,
Dr. Burrows.
I move that the Board of Education designate persons authorized to sign checks, contracts, agreements, and purchase orders as detailed in the enclosure.
Support.
It's been moved by Dr. Burrows, supported by Dr. Rodriguez. Any discussion? Sam or John, can you just clarify who those people are?
Sure. Superintendent Sam Sinacropi, Chief Financial Officer John Lang, Budget Director Kim Adams, Director of Operations Katie White, Accounting Manager Rebecca Pencil, and Senior Accountant Shauna Darling.
And pencil is not spelled the way that you might expect pencil to be spelled.
No,
Fun
you want me
fact.
to spell it?
No, I just
Okay.
thought it was interesting that it's Pensyl.
Yeah.
For the crowd watching us. Any other questions or discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Dr. Burrows,
Yes.
Mrs. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mrs. Lilji,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Dr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Willis.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Moving on to item F, designation of day, place, and time for regular meetings. May I have a motion?
Madam President,
Mrs. Willis?
I move that items F, G, H, and I be approved as presented. Those motions include designating a place and time for regular meetings, which should be held at least every month, and designate a day for regular study session for the board. Item G, determine fee charged to individuals who request notice of board meetings. Item H, appoint Lansing Board of Education parliamentarian as Mary Kay Scullion. And item I, appoint staff person responsible for posting public notices of meetings of the Board of Education to be Lynette Hester.
Support.
It's been moved by Mrs. Willis, supported by Dr. Burrows. I like your style. Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Dr. Burrows,
Yes.
Mrs. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mrs. Lilji,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Dr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Willis.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to appointment of Title IX representative. May I have a motion?
Madam President,
Dr. Rodriguez.
I made the motion that Dr. Camila Diaz and Michael Jones be designated as the Lansing School District Title IX representatives.
Support.
It's been moved by Dr. Rodriguez, supported by Mrs. Lilje. Any discussion? Superintendent Sinacropi, can you tell us about Michael Jones? Is he new to us?
No, Michael Jones has been in the school district for approximately 10 years. He's filled a variety of positions, does a lot of stuff with grants and overseeing them. He also has worked closely with Dr. Diaz in some issues already, so he's getting his feet wet. He's a good choice. They'll work well together.
Madam President,
Dr. Rodriguez?
yes, I would like to the superintendent to explain the different roles of these two designated people in the new policy.
Right. Michael Jones in the would be before the new, as Dr. Rodriguez said, the new guidelines came out, would be our Title IX coordinator was what he would be called. So basically, Michael does the day-to-day work, would oversee as calls come in or as emails come in. He would help begin and work on some preliminary investigations. Dr. Diaz oversees Mr. Jones. So, and Dr. Diaz, as you know, has been the Title IX coordinator in the past. So we have a great deal of knowledge there right now. So basically, Dr. Diaz is the supervisor and Mr. Jones is in the old days would be the coordinator.
Thank you, Mr. Sinacropi. Any further questions or discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Dr. Burrows,
Yes.
Mrs. Mrs. Lawrence,
Yes.
Ms. Lilje,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Dr. Rodriguez,
Yes,
Mrs. Willis.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Moving on to item K, appointment of Lansing School District FOIA officer. May I have a motion?
Madam President,
Mrs. Willis?
I move that Miracle Barton and Danielle Kaler, thank you, be designated as the Lansing School District Freedom of Information Act officers.
support.
It's been moved by Mrs. Willis, supported by Dr. Rodriguez. Any discussion?
Madam Chair?
What's that? Yep, Mr. Lopez, go ahead.
Yeah, did you mention a name? Who was this person?
Yes, Miracle Barton and Danielle Kaler.
Okay.
Any further discussion from any members? Okie dokie. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Dr. Burrows,
Yes.
Mrs. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mrs. Lilje,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Dr. Rodriguez,
Yes,
Mrs. Willis.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Moving on to designation of board secretary as the representative to the ISOA, which is the Ingham School Officers Association. May I have a motion?
Madam President,
Dr. Burrows.
I move that the Board of Education designate the Lansing School District Board of Education Secretary as the representative to the Ingham School Officers Association.
Support.
It's been moved by Dr. Burrows, supported by Mrs. Willis. Any discussion?
Good luck with your 7 a.m. meetings, Dr. Rodriguez.
thank you. I am saving a lot of gas lately.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
And we had the first meeting of the year yesterday at 8:00. Then we already started the last one, and thank you for sending me there. Thank you.
Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Dr. Burrows,
Yes.
Mrs. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mrs. Lilje,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Double yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Dr. Rodriguez,
Yes,
Mrs. Willis.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Moving on to our last motion for this evening is the distribution of conflict of interest policies. This
There
is
is
not,
no,
yeah,
there is
there's
no
not a
motion.
motion. This is just informative. Again, it shall be noted in the record that each board member received a dated copy of the revised bylaw sections 0144.3 and 0144.4 detailing conflict of interest policies as required by the Board of Education bylaws in the enclosures. Okay. That is all of our annual organizational meeting business for this evening. So we're going to adjourn this meeting in just a moment and start our regular board meeting at 6 o'clock. So go get a drink or kiss your baby or whatever you want to do. And I'll see you back in a minute. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Lansing School District Board of Education to order. Dr. Diaz needs to be made a panelist as well. Will everyone please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and
and to the republic
Stand
for which it
which it
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Dr. Body?
Here.
Dr. Burrows?
Here.
Did Miss Hodgen? I see her name.
Yep.
Mrs. Lawrence?
Here.
Mrs. Lilgy?
Here.
Mr. Lopez?
present.
Mrs. Moore?
Here.
Dr. Rodriguez?
Present.
And Mrs. Willis?
Present.
Quorum is present.
Thank you very much. Any additions to the agenda this evening? Okay, seeing none. Lynette, no public comment, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Then we will move on to presentations, and I will turn it over to Superintendent Sinacropi.
Thank you, President Lawrence. John Lang will do the bulk of the presentation tonight. Kim Adams, who is usually here, is feeling under the weather. So I told her to not be here then. She should take care of herself. So John, can you, who's sharing, you sharing or is Lynette?
I was planning on it. I just need the screen share abilities.
Okay. You'll get that in a second. Here. There is a change that board members, I hope, received today. What we redid one of the slides, and we'll talk about that as we get to that slide.
There we go. Okay, everybody can see it?
Yep.
All right. Sam, did you need to say anything else to start or this?
Yeah, I'll say just a couple things. I'll introduce you first of all, our Chief Financial Officer and the Budget Director put this budget amendment together. It is a little later this year than normal, and part of it was some of the unknowns, and we still have some unknowns. But we went ahead and prepared this for tonight, and I think I'm pretty happy with where we are with our budget right now, and we'll be able to answer any questions you may have as we go along. So John, take it away, and you'll hear mostly from him unless I feel the need to say something during the presentation.
Anytime, Sam. So just a reminder of the context of how we start the budget amendment process and the budget in general is that back in April, May, June, we're working on the budget that gets adopted by the board before the end of June. So, but there's a lot of, especially this past year, a lot of unpredictable assumptions. The enrollment, we didn't really know where we're going to end up being at the time. State aid and foundation allowance, we did not know. Staffing totals and grant allocations, a lot of that is just unknowns at the time that the budget needs to be passed. And then also the actual fund balance changes as we get towards the end of the year, and then when the audit presentation is presented to the board in November. So these reflects these changes as of the end of November from the approved budget in June. And just as a reminder, the board approved the budget in June, with projected ending fund balance this year just over $6 million. After the audit was complete, there was a decrease in the fund balance from what was budgeted. And for those of us who remember, and for new board member, the state in what was it? August, I think it was late August, reduced the state aid for last year by $175 per pupil. So that's that reason for that decrease from essentially from what we passed in the adopted budget, and what that audited ended up being. So that almost $1.7 million. What we'll see in the next few pages is we have shown increased revenue of over $7 million, some investments of $4.6 million, and then some decreases to discretionary costs of just over $3.5 million. So adding to the budget just over $6.1 million. So now projecting to have a fund balance at the end of this year of just over $10.5 million. And for the revenue changes, increase in local revenue primarily is due to property taxes. Property tax values still have been increasing. So even though we had a reduction in our millage that we can place on the operating taxes, because of the overall increase in property tax values, we're expecting an increase of just about $1 million. Also, along with millage, but having to do with the Ingham ISD, these revenues haven't flow through the ISD. They passed their millage back in, I think it was March last year, to recapture some of their Headley reductions for property taxes. And those funds, some of them were designated to go back to the districts within the county. And that was just about $300,000 that would go back to Lansing. The increase in state funding, and I'll explain more about this on the state on the next page. The foundation balance, allowance balance amount stayed the same at $8,227. And that was significant because what we had budgeted in what was adopted was a $600 per pupil reduction, because that's kind of what we were being told at the time, somewhere in that range of what was going to be reduced for state aid for this year. Revenues ended up being better than projected by the state. So once the foundation allowance was set, they remained at the same. And the super plan, which we'll explain on the next page, is what was utilized for this year. So about $6 million more in revenue. And then just a slight decrease in what we could claim in indirect funds for food service revenues. Excuse me. So the state aid funding changes. So what we passed in the budget was an assumption of that there was going to be 10,000 student FTE. The actual ended up being 9,464. And with that assumed loss of $600 per FTE. And then the actual remained at the 8,227. So what this means to us for this year is that in traditional years, prior years, the state aid funding allowance, how they calculate the state aid versus the actual FTE students, is that in the prior spring, they take 10% of that student count or the FTE, along with 90% of the current fall count. And if that was for this year, we would have ended up with, for state aid, calculation of 9,500 FTE for students. But the super plan that the state decided to this year, just to help out schools that obviously they did not know what schools would end up being like with enrollment and FTE this year, is that they did 75% of the count came from the spring of 2019 count and fall of 2019 count. And that split up 10% of the spring of that 75%, so 7.5%, and 90% of the fall, 67.5%. And then 25% of that count was from spring of 2020 and this past fall count. So what that meant for us is that our student count actually increased for 722 FTE over what it would have been under the traditional method of doing the state aid calculation. So again, about $6 million that we are able to have more in revenue this year than under the traditional method of counting FTE. And in the expenditures, we have some investments and some savings. So the investments are added costs. First off, in staff investments, one of the main things and part of the uncertainties going into this year is that the district decided to have no staff layoffs because we did not know what student count would be like. So therefore, it would not be prudent to reduce staff and then have to bring them back. So in order to ensure that academic stability, then we decided not to have staff layoffs. So from what the budget was passed this past June, that was an increase back into the budget of just under 4.7 million. And then some other program investments that we had in discretionary funds, and the board adopted the social studies textbook in this past December. And also included in the investments is the increase in the technology fund. That's our Fund 46. And that helps fund the EFinance, our finance system program, and Synergy, which is the student information system. And then some other program savings that we had this year that actually helped save some funds were from the COVID and CARES grants that we had. We're able to apply some of those to the general fund costs to help reduce some of the burden on the general fund. And then some other reductions and eliminations that due to like we eliminated the late start Wednesday. So there were some programs and contracts that we were able to reduce that we were no longer going to be doing this year. And then also because we have limited transportation this year, there was a reduction in the cost there. And that's a large part of that too. We do have a contractual obligation with the contract with Dean to still pay a portion of the contract, but it's greatly reduced from what we would have had if there was full transportation this year. So the net is increase in costs of about $1.144 million for added expenditures for this year. And so just to summarize again, the adopted budget from June with the decrease in the fund balance down to 4.4 million, increase in investments and costs of 1.144, increased revenues brings us to the projected of the 10.5 to $515 for the fund balance at the end of this fiscal year. Went through that pretty quickly, but obviously if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. And Sam, I didn't give you much time to talk, so.
Yeah, that was fast. Also, just a couple of notes, just so you're aware. You are aware that we're in the final year of our REAP grant, so we've moved some funding to general fund for the rest of this year. We also are going to start looking at projections right now, and you will start hearing Budget Amendment 2 will probably be ready for you sometime in April and maybe May. It just depends right now, but hopefully we'll have a better idea. We're also in line for some funds from I forgot the title, Consolidated Act. So I can't remember what's in the middle of it. CAA, which was similar to CARES. It's the part that if you've been watching the news, that part of this is the $600, not to us, but is the $600 to each individual from the federal government. So we're going to have some money coming from that also. We don't know exactly what that is yet, and we do not know what if any limitations or how we can spend it. So we'll be looking at that, and as soon as we know something, you certainly will be the next ones to know.
Are there other questions or any questions?
Yes. Yeah.
Dr.
Yes.
Rodriguez, I'm gonna first go to Dr. Burrows and Mrs. Willis, and then I'll come back to you, Dr. Rodriguez.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Burrows, go ahead.
Okay. A couple questions just to make sure I understand fully. Thank you very much for that presentation. So the first question I had was the $1.7 million decrease to the audited fund balance. You're saying that's because of the take back from the state on the foundation allowance from the previous year?
Yes.
Okay.
So, it'd be noted in the when the our auditors did their presentation back in November, but because it was so late in the school year, or excuse me, the fiscal year of the state, actually, they did not notify us until I think it was August that there was going to be the reductions to state aid for FY20.
Okay.
That's why the difference in the audited fund balance from the budget, adopted budget, usually would have ended up being a lot closer, obviously.
Okay. Another clarification question I had. Talking about the decrease in expenditure. Yeah, increased costs because of staff adjustments. The one I have is the older one that was printed out.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's $5 million. So were we originally planning on cutting $5 million worth of staff?
Go ahead, John.
Sam. No, go ahead, Sam.
No, we
Okay.
were not looking at that because, as John said, one of the reasons that we kind of redid this slide is that I wanted to make sure that we were a little clearer on what we were talking about. So there's really two things there, as John mentioned. We decided to ensure academic stability for this year because we were looking at a lot of unknowns. We were not going to look at any staff reductions. And also part of this is also contractual obligations that we've signed contracts. And this is all, not just teachers, it's all of our bargaining groups. And also the third part, which is much smaller, but there is some small REAP funding from the past year that was moved to general fund also.
Okay. So revenue changes, the projected increase in local revenue of nearly $1 million. Is there any concern about the long-term economic effects, particularly with respect to commercial real estate and the housing market from the recession? This seems like a fairly robust expectation of an increase in revenue, given the economic climate.
Great question. Ben Malinsky. The counties or the cities and townships submit their property tax assessments to the counties, and that's where we get the information from for projecting our revenue. So I was surprised that we still had an increase, but I don't know if that's just that the economy hasn't caught up on property tax values. I think there's other forecasters that do that sort of thing. I just go with the data that we have. But yeah, it did show a potential increase. Yeah.
Okay. The last question I have, and this is for you, but also something to think about for the entire board. So the equivalent cost gain, we were showing $6 million more because of the way they calculated the blended count. So if we were to return to the traditional system in the next fiscal year and enrollment was the same as it is this year, we would need to find $6 million to reduce from our budget. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Just so we're all aware of what we're looking at there.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That's all. Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Dr. Burrows. Mrs. Willis?
Thank you. And just to piggyback off of that point, my question was going to be related to the CARES Act funding and the new round of the CAA, whatever additional stimulus funding. So thank you, Mr. Sinacobi, for clarifying that. But going back to the adjusted cost to adopted budget slide, it also looks like we had some savings, some net savings related to the COVID costs that were transferred, transportation reductions. And again, so those are also one-time savings as well. So we actually, in our savings this year, realize a significant portion that are really one-time. And so if we were to reenact these expenditures plus lose, potentially lose these savings plus have additional expenditures next year, our budget actually will be much tighter without there being relief
Yes, it
Williams?
is.
Okay.
Yes, it is very fair. And it's not anything that we're not thinking about and what that looks like for the next budget cycle.
Okay.
And just to add on to that, and I know back in November when we had our audit presentation, I think Ms. Lawrence mentioned it was her favorite presentation annually, but it was a couple of months ago. So Mr. Piesco, who did the presentation, mentioned that a lot of these, again, are the one-time revenue inflows, but not knowing what the revenue stream is going to be like next year. He mentioned that a lot of this year is about building up your fund balance to brace for next year.
Yeah, these are like keep me up at night numbers with how razor thin our margin could potentially be.
Yes.
If we don't have. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Dr. Rodriguez?
Thank you very much. Some of my worries have been already answered, but raised for me a lot of concerns and where we are going to be in 6 months from now. I agree with the board members that they talked before me, our fund balance can disappear very, very soon. And I think that is something we have to be dealing right now until every month what we are going to do to prevent to have what always said at least 6-7% of the budget and the fund balance. And definitely we decide to do few things like to keep the staff members and not all the staff for $4,600,000. Plus, we don't know how much more money we have to spend that we are not spending right now. Then are we having a plan and how we are going to deal with all this situation that we are having right now? Are we planning to direct the dollars in different way? Or we are going to wait 6 months and then don't have fund balance?
I think that's a good question. And the best answer I have is we are working on that plan right now. We understand exactly what you said, Dr. Rodriguez, and what other board members have said. These are one-time funds that we're having right now. So we are going to have to tighten our belts a lot. And as I said earlier, you'll start to see some of that as we go into the second budget amendment in April or May. You'll see some of that. But we can talk monthly or do a short report monthly on this, or whatever the board would like. But no matter what, we still have lots of unknowns. But saying that, we can't. I agree with you, Dr. Rodriguez. We're not going to allow us to go down to no fund balance. We can't. So that means that we'll have to make adjustments in staff, adjustments in programming, and whatever else comes along.
And I thank you for your answer, and I agree 100%, but we cannot wait. We had to start planning right away. And this board, with the administration, has to make decisions that benefit the students, that we keep the best we can for the education of our students, at the same time that you use the dollars that we have the best we can. But if we don't do some really made decisions, we have the risk that we won't have enough money in 1 year from now.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. I'm going to go to Mr. Lopez and then back to Dr. Burrows. Mr. Lopez, go right ahead.
Thank you. I have a couple of small questions here. The unadjusted cost to adopted budget, we have increase in technology fund, EFinance synergy. Is that the E-rate? Does it have to do with E-rate or not?
No, EFinance is our finance program.
Oh, it's the
And-
program. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, then, do we get anything because of our E-rate that would help us?
We do on certain purchases. The last large one had to do with some of the purchases in the bond technology projects. That was about 1.3 million, but that was a couple years ago. So it's more of sort of those sort of to be able to request funds for that. I can check.
Excuse me.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, John, that when those funds come to us, typically they're put into the technology fund, or at least a portion of it is to pay for the things that John was talking about. But as he said, we did not, the E-rate, I don't know what it was this year, but it didn't come in as we needed. So we needed to add a few dollars back to that.
Right.
And a couple of years ago, we reduced our contribution to technology when we were looking at some tough budget times. So we didn't have the funds in there that we needed to have in order to, Synergy is our student system and EFinance is our finance system. So we needed to have those in order to, we pay the, I don't know, what do you call it? Do we have a, not rent, but the allocation for that? We had to pay that to keep those programs going.
Okay.
We can talk to Jeff and the technology department I know there's a little bit we get, but not much as normal. Or for, like I said, the bigger projects.
The E-rate, the return on that, how much did it help us with? And you said we had to put some money in this year to make up for some stuff that E-rate or that return didn't cover. So, okay. My second question has to do with increase in investments. That's the money we invest came in at $1.1 million, right? What kind of percentage are we getting a return? What does that equal to?
I'm sorry, what?
You have here on increase in investments.
Well, the investments is
1.1.
so.
Or is that investments in the money we have?
No.
No.
That's in reference to the prior page where the staff investments and the program investments. It's more of a terminology of we're investing funds in the district as far as again the textbook adoption as an investment into the. I think you're thinking of interest revenue is what.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's not having to do with that. No.
Okay. Well, then let me ask you, are we getting any significant return on investment interest rate? If so, where are they at?
Yeah, once the virus hit it, and the markets kind of took a nosedive, it's not much. I think recently it's like less than 0.1%. It's really low right now. Prior to that, it was maybe around 2%, but it hasn't been much this year.
Because in the past, recent past, not that long ago, we talked about reviewing our investments and see how we could do better.
Yep.
And I guess that's one of the areas that we need to look at as we move forward.
And that's PFM is our investment firm that we work with to do our work on our investments and they diversify.
Right.
They work with that as far as trying to find the best options for us.
Right. Okay. Well, I guess we'll put that as a to-do thing.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Dr. Burrows?
Yeah, sorry to take up more time. I just think this is worth thinking about if you haven't been considering it already, and you might have. So right now, with the recent federal package to deal with COVID, in response to COVID, they didn't include any aid for states or local governments. So we can anticipate that unless there's something that comes out of the new administration, the state budgetary situation next year could be rather dire. And we might see something even larger than we were anticipating this year in terms of cuts to the foundation allowance. And that's on top of, the state's systematic disinvestment in education over the last 25 years. I think it's important for anyone who's watching to realize that failure to increase the foundation allowance every year represents a cut in real terms because of inflation. Our costs go up every year. So if our foundation allowance isn't going up every year, then we have less money per student to spend on education. So I'm sure you're perfectly aware of the prospects of the state budget next year, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone was fully aware of it. Thank you.
And I can just let you know that I think it's next Friday, there's the first state revenue estimating conference. So we may know some information by next week, end of next week.
Any further questions from board members? Okay, Mr. Lang, thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Moving on to report from Superintendent, Mr. Sinacropi, go ahead.
I am going to shake up the batting order tonight, and we're going to go to Did You Knows first. And so that I'll be the drag at the end of the line, but I want to start with Dr. Chapman, please.
Thank you, Superintendent Sinacropi. Good evening, board and Lansing community. Did you know that the Lansing School District supports Teaching Tolerance, a nationally acclaimed educational organization that provides a means to address and support local and/or national events during turbulent times? Today, teachers in the Lansing School District received a step approach to support student voice and choice to discuss a crisis as it unfolds. The four-step approach lends to the Teaching Tolerance mission of assisting with educating youth to be active participants in a diverse democracy. Here in the Lansing School District, we find strength in our diversity. As our staff and students strive or thrive because we are stronger together. We encourage parents and caregivers to visit teachingtolerance.org for more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Diaz.
Good evening. Thank you, Superintendent, and good evening, Board of Education. Did you know that even as we are approaching the middle of the school year, that we continue to enroll preschool students every day? If you know of a preschool student who would benefit from joining our classrooms, please have them click the link on our Lansing School District homepage. In addition, before you know it, it will be time to register your incoming kindergartner for school in the fall of 2021. Kindergarten registration is scheduled for Wednesday, March 10th from 1 to 7 p.m. Mark your calendars now and watch for more information to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Benavides.
Good evening, everyone. Did you know that we are wondering if you are ready to choose your child's educational pathway? Please join us on February 21st from 12 to 4 p.m. for our interactive virtual, yes, you heard right, virtual showcase. Log in to www.lsdshowcase2021.com and we will help you explore your pathway to lift off.
Thank you. Mr. Lang.
Good evening again. Did you know we are excited to announce that the Lansing School District's Food and Nutrition Program, along with Sodexo Magic, has been selected to participate in the 10 cents a meal for Michigan Kids and Farms program. The program is designed to improve daily nutrition and eating habits for Lansing children and invest in Michigan's agriculture and local food business economy. The state-funded pilot program will match 10 cents per meal up to $100,000 on what the district spends on Michigan-grown fruits, vegetables, and legumes. The program has supported schools in select regions of the state since 2016. However, this was the first year we were able to apply for this grant. With the support, the Lansing School District and Sodexo Magic will be able to bring in even more local, fresh fruits and vegetables throughout the school year, build relationships with local small farms, and continue to improve the health of students throughout the district. We are thrilled to be a part of this program and look forward to opportunities that affords us to better serve our children.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Who did I forget? Oh, Ms. Black. Sorry, I skipped you. I'm sorry.
You're fine. Thank you. Good evening. Did you know the Attendance Initiative was awarded a grant to implement AI chatbot? AI chatbot is an automated artificial intelligence two-way texting communication system that will increase communication with families and students to reduce staff time. Chatbot is considered a proactive outreach messaging system that is able to send nudge reminders, student attendance information, and surveys ranging from technology connectivity to classroom assignment support. Chatbot has the ability to respond within 2 seconds of student and family inquiries, and 65 to 85% of the inquiries can be handled before reaching our email inboxes. The Attendance Initiative's goal is not to replace staff contact, but to increase communication regarding attendance and other district initiatives and campaigns. We look forward to providing additional data and other chatbot updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Corbin.
Thank you. Good evening. Did you know that the district's self-care and wellness program is offering some great opportunities for our staff? We are currently in a holiday hustle event where teams of 5 compete to see who has the most steps. We have 310 participants with 96,554,714 steps so far. We're also in week 3 of 5 of our virtual self-care series. Tonight's session has 30 attendees listed. Starting in February, Eastern teacher Michael Richter will be hosting virtual yoga classes for our staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Keck.
Thank you, Superintendent, and good evening and Happy New Year to all of you. Did you know that cultural brokers provide language assistance and bridge cultural barriers between our school staff, students, and families? Over 50 community members whose native language is other than English have been trained via an accessible virtual cultural broker training. This training has become a key element to ensure that all cultural brokers continue to remain highly qualified. Thank you.
Thank you. Now for my report. I too want to wish everyone a Happy New Year. I also want to congratulate Dr. Nino Rodriguez and Mr. Guillermo Lopez on their re-election to the Lansing Board of Education. And I also would like to welcome and congratulate newly elected board member Robin Moore. Welcome. Thank you for serving on the Lansing Board of Education. We appreciate your effort. We appreciate all your efforts for our students. Excuse me. The Ingham Intermediate School District, in partnership with Ingham County, the Ingham County Health Department, SETSEG, and MSU will be offering free COVID-19 vaccinations to all education employees within the county. Lansing school employees will have the opportunity to be vaccinated during the first 2 weeks of February. Excuse me. I also want to thank Dr. Chapman, Dr. Diaz, and Mr. Botwinski for helping giving our students the opportunity to use teaching tolerance materials to help our students better understand recent events in our nation's capital. I would also like to give a shout out to our teachers and principals for continuing to do an outstanding job with our students. Lastly, it doesn't matter what your political views are, it is important that we help our children understand what occurred yesterday in our nation's capital. Many children become frightened and unsure of the effect that incidents like this have on them personally. Excuse me. Our community, including parents, school staff, owe our kids honesty, clarity, and understanding. I am proud of our school staff and parents for working through these difficult times with our children. Mrs. Lawrence, that concludes our report tonight.
Thank you, Superintendent Sinacropi and executive team. Moving on to routine matters and old business, our consent agenda for this evening only includes our approval of the December 17th, 2020 regular board meeting minutes. May I have a motion?
Madam President,
Dr. Body,
I move that we approve the items on the consent agenda.
Support.
it's been moved by Dr. Body, supported by Dr. Burrows. Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Dr. Body,
Yes.
Dr. Burrows,
Yes.
Mrs. Hodgin, Mrs. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mrs. Lilji,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Dr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Willis.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Our action item for this evening is the approval of the budget amendment for which we just received a presentation. May I have a motion?
Madam President,
Dr. Burrows,
I move that the Board of Education approve the budget amendment number 1 and resolution as detailed in the attachment.
Second.
it's been moved by Dr. Burrows, supported by Dr. Body. Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Dr. Body,
Yes.
Dr. Burrows,
Yes.
Mrs. Hodgin, Mrs. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mrs. Lilji,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mrs. Moore,
Yes.
Dr. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mrs. Willis.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Dr. Rodriguez, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I had a report. It's not in the agenda.
Okay,
Report for the secretary.
go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. On Thursday, January 13, 2021, Parents University, post-secondary planning. I had graduated from high school. Now what? 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Free of charge. Online webinar. See the Lansing School District website for sign up and for more details. Thursday, January 14, 2021. Virtual informational study session for the board, meeting at 6 p.m. Thursday, January 21st, 2021, virtual regular board meeting at 6 p.m. And Monday, January 18, 2021, no school celebration day in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. And I know the superintendent and I had not discussed this with the rest of the board yet, but we actually will be canceling our ISS for next week, and we will be holding an officers meeting instead. So there will be further information coming about that. But to the non-officer board members, you don't have a meeting next Thursday night. And I know, Dr. Rodriguez, we also have received some correspondence about the MLK Day celebration. Of course, there's normally the luncheon at the Lansing Center, and that will be televised this year. Any other announcements or comments from anyone?
May I add just real quick, Mrs. Lawrence, that the MLK luncheon will be held on Channel 10. It'll be televised. I think it's 7 o'clock at night. So it's from 7 to 8. But we'll get more information out at our next board meeting.
Madam President.
Doctor.
Thank you. I want to thank Sarah Anthony one more time and all of you for being present during the ceremony this afternoon. I think we have in front of us at different times. And if we want to really confront the education reality that we are going to have after the pandemic, we had to work together and we had to work hard. We had to have meetings, we had to talk, we had to communicate with them. administration, the community, and see where we can go together. I hope that we can really dream one more time big and to take the district the place they're supposed to be after these difficult months. Also, I want to let the students of the Lansing School District, when they study social studies, our United States of America, our country is a beautiful one. Then thank you for the opportunity that I had to serve, and a Happy New Year to everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. I know that we definitely will be entering into some uncharted territory when the pandemic is over. Luckily, we are in a district that has a strong footing to begin with. I know a lot of other districts cannot say the same. Not only are we on a strong financial foothold, but we have a board and a superintendent and an executive team and teachers and staff who all work together and have each other's backs. And we're gonna get through it. And I'm just eagerly awaiting the end of the pandemic and the return to in-person learning. I know everybody else is too. Mr. Lopez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The things that have happened in the last couple of days, yesterday, or things that are really disheartening and hard for everybody. So, I was gonna send Sam a document, but I want to talk about civics education for our students. You know, um, the respect of our form of government and the three branches of government, so on and so forth, are so important. And there's people that do not understand the system, that have no clue as to what they're doing. I was looking at the immigration citizenship test that immigrants go through, and no wonder that any immigrant who has become a citizen knows what the three branches of government are, and knows about the presidents, knows about the history, all in the civics education format. So I don't know if our curricula includes civics to what extent, but I think that we should look at that and look at this questionnaire for citizenship that has really good information, and really students would have to study and learn not only about the government but about other issues that have to do with civic education. So I will be sending that to Mr. Sincropi and see how that measures up with what we're doing, and if we need to to enhance our program, because that is so important, and I think lack of that education is really having a really negative impact in our society. So I want to bring that and bring it up to this board and to the administration to see how we can work on it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Dr. Body?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just quickly, the criteria for the general public to receive vaccines was released. If you are 65 years of age or older, you are eligible now to receive a vaccine. The way to do that is to go to the Ingham County Health Department's website and sign up for an appointment. I want to share with the board that I personally received a COVID vaccine as a frontline worker, as a physician 2 weeks ago, and I feel fine. I haven't grown any extra arms or legs or anything. I'm doing just fine. I had a little bit of soreness in my arm for the first 24 hours, and then after that, everything was back to normal. So I encourage everyone to get it as soon as it's available to you. And that includes all of our great teachers and support staff. As soon as you have the opportunity to get it, I hope that you take that opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Body. Looking forward to the day that we all can receive the vaccine. Any further comments from board members? Ms. Lilji?
Are we considered employees as school board members in terms of getting vaccinated?
I actually can answer that question because we had heard from Superintendent Mellema in the ISD, and we did ask board members, and there was a couple other things, and board members right now are not included in with this vaccination that's going out now. It's more for teaching staff, you know, and administrators that work with students and things like that. So I'll let you know as soon as you are.
Okay.
Further comments from board members? Okay. Thank you again, everyone. Thanks for your work. With no further business before the board at 6:52, we are adjourned. See you in 2 weeks.